Hey, y'all, I'm just glad that we've got a couple of minutes here to prepare for our IndyCar special. I wanted to make sure that I have at least 100 seconds to prepare all my notes. And wait a minute, why does that clock say 0? Welcome back to Motorsport 101. Ah!
You know, if I were Romain Grosjean and I was leading an IndyCar race for the first 2/3, I would simply finish the job.
Not happening anytime soon. Welcome to episode 439 of Motorsport 101. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, Dre Harrison, and welcome to the last of our triple header off the back of last week. Fun times for all involved. We're talking about the best race of the weekend. IndyCar's
and it ain't close.
No, it isn't either. Yeah, IndyCar's Grand Prix of Barber over in Alabama. Oh, this is good motorsport right here.
Is that good shit? Get warm, syrupy pleasure coursing through my veins after a hit of IndyCar.
That's Cam Buckley. He was very, very happy with the race at Barber, and so was I, and so was Shill for the series. Well, not series, but certainly this track. The man loves Barber like an adoptive child. It's RJ O'Connell.
It used to be my home track way back in the day when I lived in Alabama and way back when I lived in Tennessee. I don't live near any of those places. And for reasons that have nothing to do with motorsport, I can't say that I regret my decisions, but it is always a place that is near and dear to my heart. And I always tell people this race for single-seaters produces better racing than you were led to believe. Because, yes, it is a twisty and undulating and narrow track that you wouldn't think lends itself well to quality of racing, but this was a
Dre, can you hear the shill coming out of him right now?
Oh,
there is so much shill here. This is
5 floors of vintage motorcycles and a museum.
What I will say is that since we struck off the aero kits from the DW12, this track's been real good.
Yes, absolutely.
That's my take on this for IndyCar. And, in general, I just like watching IndyCars around a road course. They're always fun.
Indeed. And yeah, IndyCar delivered again in Barber. No surprise, it was announced during the weekend as well that it had been given a 3-year extension, so it's going to be on the IndyCar calendar through 2026. And rightly so. I think it's an excellent round for IndyCar's April slot. Right before we get into the month of May, which we'll be getting into in a couple of weeks' time.
We did test. We did test in the meantime.
We did a test. We got the I believe it's the GMR Grand Prix. They're sponsoring the first Indianapolis road course race on the 13th. But we've got to talk about Barber first. And oh boy,
round 2. Anybody like rematches? I love this rematch.
Oh yeah, in the red corner, representing Bus Bros, cow uniforms, and occasional Twitter pylons. It's Scott McLaughlin.
Blocker, Jandal, fuck yeah, repeat.
And in the blue corner, representing France, Switzerland, and any fire joke you can think of, it's Romain Grosjean. Woo!
I can't even say that he wasn't him because he was him this whole race. And then something happened that was abnormal and it probably cost him the win. Likely actually did cost him the win.
Yeah, it's funnily enough as well, because I know we've made this joke on our Discord server a couple of times, especially now that I work for him, but it was like, was it voted the best race in the race's Twitter poll for the weekend? Yes, actually.
For once, it deserved it.
Yeah, it did.
That's gonna get me piled on Twitter. Hey!
Oh dear, but I'm pretty sure it did on that one, and it deserved it because it was an excellent race. And yes, it was Scott McLaughlin versus Romain Grosjean 2. This time it's personal, and those two dudes took off and turned it into a real slobber knocker of a race. And in the end, Romain Grosjean didn't win. Again.
The winless streak continues on from the Hungary feature race in his GP2 title-winning season of 2011.
Yeah. It's been nearly 12 years now since Romain Grosjean won in a single-seater race.
Yeah, I mean, it was another gut-wrenching near miss for Andretti's leading man at this point in a race that he qualified on pole at. I mean, he and Scott McLaughlin just drove away from everyone. Put Alex Palou and Pato O'Ward in Rice.
The last two winners of this event in Rice, they just put them in a sleeper hold and didn't let go until they were just, foaming at the mouth.
Yeah, blew them into the weeds. And after the 2 stoppers and 3 stoppers were somewhat converged by a Stingray Rob technical failure at the side of the road, we got the final round of stops. McLaughlin was able to jump Grosjean, and then Grosjean puts on which certainly must be a golden melon contender for pass of the year, just put foots in him around the final corners.
You know what's crazy? We're just jumping right into it, aren't we?
Yeah. Normally I'd get the social media out of the way, but fuck it. I like where this is going.
Let's do it. What's crazy is that we already had moves at the final quarter because Christian Lundgaard, who was underratedly one of the stars of the weekend, he got back from his so-called vacation and he was putting in work. Fast 6 qualifying appearance, the second best move of the race, where he just flung it up the inside of the final quarter.
Yeah, I mean, that was just... It was a genuine overtaking opportunity at this track in these cars, and people were using it. And Grosjean did get that send, and he was leading. And we thought he was in prime position because he had all the push to pass to play with in the world, right up until the point where the 99-second timer on his steering wheel flipped to 0.
You know what's funny? When I going back, I thought at the time, did he just burn through it all trying to prevent McLaughlin from overcutting him in that last stop?
I didn't buy that when I saw that. I was like, there's no way he went through those. Because the last time we saw it on screen, it was like he had 140 seconds. And I'm like, there's no way he went through 2.5 minutes of push to pass just to defend the lead.
Well, and you're limited in using it to 20-second intervals. And obviously it shuts itself off when you hit the brakes, much like DRS does in other motorsports.
Yeah.
So he physically could not have done so in that time frame. It flipped from 99 seconds to 0, and then Grosjean was driving under massive pressure to stay ahead against someone who had maybe a percentage quicker car, but a hell of a lot more horsepower to play with.
Yeah, around that sort of time, McLaughlin had about 30 seconds left, and Grosjean described himself as a sitting duck when he realized his timer had accidentally gone to 0. And unfortunately, Grosjean ran wide at the bottom of the hill where the spider is at the hairpin and opened the door for McLaughlin, and he hit the button. That was his chance. He took it. He retook the lead. And Grosjean just couldn't stay with him after that. He ended up fading to about 2.5, 3 seconds back, and
almost got passed by Will Power, who was putting on a charge on scuffed red tires, but was able to hold him off at the end.
Yeah, Will, who just kind of ran out of tires at the end. I mean, you could see it on his right front; it was dead. And even with that mistake, I mean, they came out of that corner pretty much level, and all McLaughlin had to do was just hop on the button and drive past.
Yep. Nothing Grosjean could do. And once again, Romain Grosjean had to settle for second. Scott McLaughlin took the win and got himself right back into title contention. We'll break some of that down a little bit later on. But is this ever going to happen for Grosjean? Surely.
It's due.
Surely.
He's due. He's overdue. And what I'd say is that, without the first incident between these two, and you could tell that pass in the final corner, that was personal.
You felt
that was a vengeance pass right there.
Oh yeah, that
was for St. Pete, motherfucker.
That was the Rock hitting Stone Cold with a Stone Cold stunner.
Oh yeah, man, just hit him with it.
But he's been so quick and a bit more reserved, I'd say, the last 2 races for how he's driven. He probably should be. Look, it's doing him a world of good in the championship. He is racking up points with abandon now.
That's right. He's 5th in the championship with 115 points. And
are we about to have a winless champion? If he keeps doing this?
I would say that Romain Grosjean, this is the thing about him now, because he can now win at any stop on the calendar, I believe.
He was great. Great on street circuits.
He's great on street circuits, but it was Texas that really convinced me he is not deficient at any discipline that IndyCar goes to anymore.
No, he has been solid. We've gone to all three types of track now. I mean, the definition of street courses and the definition of road course here, and he's excelled at both. And one thing we've always been maintained with Grosjean on this podcast, the speed was never the problem.
No.
Not when you're the only, when you and a trackside Jeep are the only things leading Sebastian Vettel in the second half of the 2013 F1 season. Speed ain't your problem.
Absolutely not. And this fun fact, this is the 5th time Romain Grosjean has finished second in an IndyCar race since he got here in 2021.
Casey Kane looking ass.
And of course, back-to-back seconds after Long Beach a couple of weeks ago, and it was only beaten by a inspired Kyle Kirkwood.
He drove out of his mind, and that's another component here where he was the only Andretti that really factored all weekend. He had pace on Herta and Kirkwood, and Kirkwood in spades. They couldn't get anywhere near him all weekend.
We mentioned it a little bit when the second place at Long Beach turned up, but in an alternate universe, Romain Grosjean goes pole and win at St. Petersburg, probably finishes in the top 5 at Texas, and then takes and finishes second at Long Beach, and then wins in Barber. That's not a huge amount of goalpost moving.
No, he's had the pace in all of them to do so, and just whether it's circumstance or, I mean, he did make the mistake on Sunday, but that mistake was then compounded by the push to pass failure.
I looking back on it now, knowing what we know, I don't think it would have mattered in the end. I think McLaughlin had enough in hand where I think
I don't think so, because I think Grosjean would have had so much push to pass to defend with.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like the mistake doesn't really matter now, because once his push to pass died, I think that was the end of his chances.
Yeah.
Well, here's something that was pointed out, and I was in the middle of researching this, and then Zoe beat me to the punch. You know, Romain Grosjean's finished second 5 times in his young IndyCar career, and I'm thinking, who's had the most runner-up finishes without ever winning one? And that was Vitor Meira, who raced in the...
Wow, that's a throwback.
That man raced in the dearth of the split and was due and was overdue victories so many times for teams that were not as good as the one that Romain Grosjean drives for right now, but it just never materialized.
Right. And I think that's another storyline as well. I mean, Andretti have been much, much improved this year.
You did it. You're back to where you once were. Let's go.
I'd argue this is the best Andretti has looked probably since since the introduction of this generation of car.
They need to start converting some more of these results, and it can't just be Grosjean. I do agree that they're certainly better in terms of raw pace than what they were in the last couple of years.
Like, where the heck was Colton Herta all day?
Colton Herta was fighting with a terrible, no good, and very bad Joseph Newgarden Sunday.
Where was Kyle Kirkwood? I mean, I know he spun in the second phase of qualifying, but Devlin DeFrancesco, my man.
Well, the less said, the better.
Yeah, boat anchor.
Bottom of the regular finishes in the championship when he's 27.
I don't want to be mean, but I need to put my mean face on. Devlin DeFrancesco is
out of his depth at this level.
I think that's being too nice. He stinks. He is so far cleanly worse than any other driver in his team or any driver around him at the moment, because where he's racing is the bottom feeders of the grid, the Foyts, the Coins, etc.
Right. And
the Harley races, the Barry Windhams, the Ric Flairs. Never mind that shit. Here comes Devlin.
Here comes Dylan Brooks.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it now, I think Andretti does need to convert a little bit more on what they've got, but I do agree that they are certainly in a better place than what they were the last couple of years.
They're passing the eye test.
Yeah,
a hell of a lot more than they ever did last year.
Yeah, I mean, they've already got a win, and Grosjean, by all accounts, really has been, I think, the best driver in IndyCar so far this season. And, only Texas really goes against him, and even then, that was, you could make a case, was more maybe just an unlucky bit of aero wash than anything massively egregious on RG's part. So, besides that, like I said, alternate universe, he has a win and a second place in the top 5 across all the major disciplines of IndyCar we've already seen so far this season. That's an incredible year. And yeah, he's looking like a title contender right now. And he needs to put a 500 down. But we all know he goes
That's the
very
ultimate
well.
question, right?
Yeah.
Like,
if he can put down a 500, that's even solid top 10. He's right in the mix.
Andretti Autosport historically has prepared cars that are exceptional at the 500 since we switched these 2.2 liter turbos. I would not put it past him to make a deep run in qualifying. I wouldn't put it past him to contend for the win once all is said and done. I'm not saying he's gonna, but I wouldn't put it past him.
I want to see it. I want to see it because Texas Motor Speedway is an oval. Indy 500, the Indy 500 is run at an oval. That's where the similarities end.
It's a whole different ballgame. The level of preparation is different. We're going to have bumping. We pretty much know who's going to get bumped, but but nobody's guaranteed.
Well, that's a given. I mean, all it takes is a crash in a primary car on one day, and then that we might not know who's getting bumped. That is the beauty and the curse of the Indy 500, and everyone has to contend with it.
Can I just say as well that I liked that this was also a race of strategic variance, and I will put in the asterisk that yes, there was one thing that definitely helped the alternate strategy work. The conventional strategy is 2 stops. Some drivers, including all the Penske's, started the race on hard tires and decided we're going to stop early and try and convert a 3-stop strategy. And for Scott McLaughlin, it worked.
For Scotty Mac, Scotty Mac had the clean run, got the perfect rub of the green with the caution for Stingray Rob.
Yeah, and he had already pitted, and was already
he was in the pits. Yeah, he was coming out basically right into the yellow flag. So that's why you run the alternate strategy.
And can I say as well, IndyCar's cars are engineered to be some of the safest cars in the world. They have one of the best medical response teams that responds to incidents quicker than most, and they earn rave reviews for that. Don't compromise that by waiting to throw a caution just because.
It's the dumbest thing about this series from a stewarding perspective.
It's one of the worst rules in motorsport. I fucking detest it. It's horrible.
If you don't know IndyCar, right? Basically, anytime that there's an incident out on track, they will try and give not only that car, which keep in mind doesn't have a starter motor on board, so if it's stalled, we know it's fucked.
Because they don't leave the pit lane open anytime there's a safety car like you have in F1.
They don't. Yeah, they will give you the opportunity to try and come into pit lane to not fuck you over on strategy. And in refusing to throw a caution until everyone has pitted to not affect the race, you are directly affecting the race.
This is the NBA/NHL official that's like, I'm not going to call this penalty. This will impact the game.
Impacts the game immediately. Me, a Bruins fan over last year, not mad about it at fucking all.
Look, Cam, if I had scored 135 points in the standings.
Oh no, not this year. Not this year. This is last year.
Yeah.
This is last year when everyone stopped playing in that game because damn, that's going to be a penalty, and then they didn't call it and they ended up scoring on us.
There's never penalties in the last minute. That's silly and unnecessary. Thank goodness nobody had a separate accident into Stingray Rob's stopped car.
Right.
But there's a stopped car on the racing surface.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. That compromises what already is again, you have one of the best medical teams, you have one of the best response groups, you have some of the safest cars around. Don't compromise all of that. All
of that goes to waste when you don't make the right calls.
It's 20 years since IndyCar introduced the safer barrier, and they fucking needed to introduce the safer barrier.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right. And yeah, it's like, as RJ alluded to perfectly, do you have an incredibly safe car, relatively speaking? You have the best safety team in the business. They are incredible. But you compromise all of that when you have dumb rules like giving the leaders a wave around them whether they want to pit or not before you pull the caution and close the pit lane. It's the dumbest rule in motorsport. It's inherently dangerous. I already talked about this at Long Beach when Benjamin Pedersen's car was sideways and blocked an escape road at Long Beach for a good minute with people on the track and no caution was thrown. It is a
if another
joke.
car goes off there, we have deaths on the racetrack. That's not an exaggeration.
It is an absolute joke. It is the worst rule in modern motorsport. Get rid of it, IndyCar. It is hellaciously dangerous. Like,
if you don't want to affect this, if you don't want to affect it, and you are affecting it by doing this, if you want that to be the case, just don't close the pit lane.
Motorsport is unfair. Suck it up. Throw the caution. End of discussion. It was a confusing race for one Joseph Newgarden. He qualified 7th, but was hit by a spinning Felix Rosenqvist on the opening lap, which somehow disrupted the balance of his car, and no one quite knows how or why it happened.
Including Joseph Newgarden.
Indeed, with his tyre wear completely collapsing in the second half of his three-stop stints. Joseph eventually finished down in 15th, despite leading 6 laps and being on the winning strategy. Is this a cause for concern for Joseph's season?
When you say he is on the winning strategy, Firestone Racing actually has a chart of what tires everybody goes on. Scott McLaughlin started on new black tires. Then he pitted on lap 15 for new red tires. Then he pitted on lap 39 They put it on lap 38 for old red tires and then finished the race on a new set of black tires. That is the same exact sequence, minus a lap of difference on some of the stops that Joseph Newgarden ran. Scott McLaughlin won the race driving away. Joseph Newgarden was mired down in 15th. And you know what's even crazier? And I'm glad that you pointed this out because Joseph Newgarden had the fastest outlap of the race. How did this happen?
By nearly half a second. His raw pace was insane.
Yeah, he had the raw pace to contend with any of them and beat them. And like I said, the three stoppers ended up getting the rub of the green with the safety car, and exactly when it came out. And then the second half of the race, he just cratered. I mean, there was an instance where he was passed by about 6 cars in 3 corners.
That's not good. Long Beach.
That ain't Joseph Newgarden. That is not what we are used to seeing out of him.
No, like Long Beach, I get it. He is having to run it extra lean to make a fuel number, and that was silly. But this is just strange. And as far as like worried about his future prospects, like, we know he's had trouble winning the Borg Warner Trophy, and thank goodness for him that the race isn't double points like it has been in the past.
Yeah, but I mean, that is a general Penske problem at the moment. We'll see what they have.
He's still not in terrible shape, though. He's still in with a shot at the championship after, like, he sits in the points. He's only 25 behind Marcus Ericsson.
He's only 25 behind Marcus Ericsson, but the thing with Newgarden this year that I'm seeing is just, usually his consistency paired with his peaks is enough. And usually it requires the cartoon anvil to prevent him from reclaiming the one. In this case, this year, he has a couple like set contenders who are beating him on consistency and beating him on peaks.
It's a weird one with Newgarden. I say it's weird because, and look, I wouldn't normally point this out about Newgarden, but this is exactly the same sort of scenario that ended up costing him the title last year. And it mostly came down to the fact he started slow. He got stronger as the
first
year
half of
went
his
on.
year was a mess.
Yeah. And he pulled himself back into contention to the point where he was about to take the title lead. in Iowa, and we all know how that second race ended. Man being airlifted to hospital after his rear suspension breaks. Now, this is the problem. The good news for Newgarden here is that no one else has really taken this title by the scruff of the neck yet. Everybody around him has had at least one dodgy race. Pato O'Ward, it was Long Beach. Marcus Ericsson's got a couple of lower-end top 10s in there. Alex Palou hasn't had the really big result yet, despite the third in Texas. McLaughlin was mediocre in St. Pete. Grosjean, you know the rest. Willpower.
I say Scott McLaughlin and Romain Grosjean's fates are interlinked this year in a way.
Oh yeah, Dixon was taken out at Long Beach by Pato O'Ward. You get the gist. Everybody else has had at least one sucker round so far this season where they've been on the wrong end of the green, and that's probably what's done Newgarden. That's probably sparing Newgarden's blushes, because Newgarden took home every point he could have gotten in Texas. So, and that's helped him. That's propped him up to the point where he's only 25 behind Marcus Ericsson in the lead. And Marcus is doing what Marcus does. Top 10s every week, baby. Because he's been in the top 10 every weekend so far this season. He'll just keep stuffing those points and taking the opportunities when they come to get really big results.
And it's no longer, he's described as the sneaky sweet at this point. Honestly, at this point, it's not all that sneaky. It's just what he does.
It's not sneaky when he's just up here punching you in the face.
He put in a couple really good overtakes during the race as well. I mean, he's just racking up a great consistency top 10 season again.
Yeah, none of the chip cars were particularly good this weekend, and he still finished 10th. Palou was the best of the bunch in 5th, but he was a distant 5th, which is surprising.
He just got outgunned on the first stint by Grosjean.
Yeah, got outgunned.
He had a couple attempts at him.
Yeah, got outgunned, and in the end, it was Power, McLaughlin, and Grosjean were in a different league compared to the rest of the field. Pato O'Ward, who is normally super good, won here last year, just not in the same vicinity. Alex Palou, who won here 2 years ago, again, just not really there.
McLaughlin and Grosjean just blew Pato away in the final stint. They took this man to Gapplebee's for a 3-course dinner
and a biscuit.
Hit him with a 3-piece with no drink.
It was wild. It was absolutely wild in that sense. And yeah, that's probably what's sparing Newgarden's blushes so far. I don't think this is any major cause for concern yet, luckily, because like I said, no one's taken this title by the scruff of the neck.
Yeah.
I mean, Dre, we've seen it the last few years. Newgarden always turns it up for the second half.
And not to mention, the blessing for him is that Indianapolis is round the corner. He always goes well at the road course, and the 500 is only single points. So even if Penske stink there, it's not going to hurt him as bad as it has in previous
Watch
years.
this be the year that he ends up winning the 500, and because it's single points, he has a slump later on in the year, and he's probably going to want it with double points. It just goes like that. But, Joseph Newgarden can't get in the habit of relying on a strong second half surge to dig himself out of a first half hole. And he's had a win already. We know he's still quick, but the last 2 races are cause for concern.
Right.
That it'll just be the same old.
Right.
It's not the end of the world, but there's definitely improvement to be had.
Indeed. And maybe not too much concern out there for him at the moment, but maybe in the maybe if it's a bad 500, maybe then we'll talk and see how that goes. But again, even then, if it is, it's not the season ender that it was last year for, say, people like Colton Herta, for example. So maybe that's a plus. Also, I love that I put this in here in the script the same day that Marshall Pruett put his first silly season update of the year out. I was like, I timed this one well. Because I was curious about this one, because we talked a little bit about it on our Discord server during the race itself. Alex Palou. Now, it's pretty much the worst kept secret in IndyCar at this point that Alex Palou is going to McLaren next year.
It's a secret? Who knew?
I know. It's crazy. This might shock a few people that are listening to this show, that Alex Palou is probably going to McLaren in 2024, almost certainly going to McLaren. Definitely, absolutely is going to McLaren in 2024 to take the number 6 car. No, it's the 7 car. I keep getting that confused between them.
No. We say that. I mean, Zach Brown could formulate another one of those handshake deals and leave him out to dry.
Well,
Bucket, Kyle Larson goes to IndyCar full time.
Get out.
You're
not even
RJ, do you value your life?
Oh, apparently not.
You're coming to London soon. I will beat you my damn self. Anyway, while we get a muzzle for RJ, that's better. It's funny you mentioned that as well, because like Zach Brown in Marshall Pruett's piece apparently like said to him off the record, Marshall Pruett, that there's a possibility that McLaren might go to 4 cars. They might not dump Rosenqvist after all. Apparently, if Rosenqvist delivers on results, McLaren might be prepared to keep him on and they expand to a 4-car operation, which is wild given they've only just gone to 3. But
given that they still only have one truly win-competing car every weekend, and that's usually Pato.
Yeah, it's wild. But apparently there is murmurs that McLaren might go to 4. So we could be looking at a 28, maybe 29 car field next year, because there was also talk in that piece that it looks like Chip will facilitate a car for Kiffin Simpson no matter what.
Kiffin Simpson, a man that I saw take over a race in Asia Le Mans Series in LMP2, which is why it was strange that when I watched Indy Next at Barber Motorsports Park, he was given incident responsibility for causing a first lap pileup, was then given a drive-through penalty while 9 laps down as a result of damage from said pileup, couldn't be told on the radio that he had to serve a drive-through penalty, and was just disqualified for not serving a penalty that he didn't know he had while he was already 9 laps down for the incident that he caused. Kiffin.
Very normal. Meanwhile, in our chat, a cloud of Scottish rage is currently encroaching upon RJ's new house.
Yeah. Quote, RJ, don't speak that, etc.
Look, is it more cringe than Santucci Farino's America car?
Debatable.
Anyway, we've done enough stalling. Dre,
we're talking about
who do you think is the favorite for Alex Palou's maybe vacated seat at Chip Ganassi Racing?
It's a weird one, because again, Pruett's piece was fascinating in that he said that if Simpson delivers, because he's apparently going to put Kiffin in for a lot of sports car gigs to see if he's really ready for it, to try and accelerate that development. If he's good and he gets a really big season, apparently Chip will open up a 5th car for him. And they might and there's still talk about what they're going to do with the 11. There's apparently some low-key hope that maybe Marcus Armstrong might be convinced to do some ovals, because although that would also mean Marcus would have to make some more funding to make it happen. Mm-hmm. But Marcus Armstrong has been very good so far this season for all it's worth. Like 11th, 8th, and 11th in his 3 rounds so far.
11th from 26 on the grid. Trey, I know you all are podcasting rivals now, but that is spectacular performance. Dude could win Rookie of the Year, making up the difference with the races that he misses. That's crazy.
Yeah, look, I joke about him, like, be pretending to care about him, because he said that on his own show, Screaming Meals, that people don't care about the racing. They're only here to find out what they do in their other time, like, which for a Formula 2 driver is fucking bold, if I do say so myself. But the man's driving really, really well in the Chip car so far. He's been excellent in IndyCar so far. I do find it funny that when he got his overtaking award trophy, that he was like, oh, that's cool. I have to point out the fantastic tweet from Zoe she put out there a couple of days ago. I quote, Marcus Armstrong is what happens if we put Emma Dixon's personality into Scott Dixon's body, which is a magnificent tweet.
And accurate.
That's one of the best IndyCar tweets I have ever seen. Round of applause for Zoe Hamilton on that one, because that was just World class, if I do say so myself. That's beautiful. Anyway, I've stalled enough on this one. The question I asked in the script was, who do you think is the favourite for the number 10 seed at Chip Ganassi? Because this is one that's come up a lot, and I've got a feeling that silly season probably starts regarding who takes the 10, which is a well-funded, well-liked seed of Chips, and, there'll be plenty of money to go through
I
it.
see what you did there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm not stupid. There'll be plenty of money to go through that seat. It's well-funded. You don't need to necessarily go paying driver. There was even talk in that Pruett piece that they might even put Ericsson in the 10 and get another paying guy for the 8 instead.
Wow.
So there's moves they can make on this. For me personally, I would love to see Christian Lundgaard in that seat.
Oh baby, you get Christian Lundgaard and Marcus Armstrong there in the team of we have been betrayed by Mechachrome engine fragility.
Yeah, and I mean, as a tiny recap, I mean, Christian Lundgaard was this past weekend, the only bright spot in what has otherwise been an atrocious season for Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan. I mean, at this point, Graham Rahal is hitting more opponents than apexes.
Bro.
There was literal talk that Rahal might actually walk away from this team now after 17 years under his dad's affiliation.
It hasn't always been under his dad. I mean,
mostly.
Yeah.
Over a decade.
A good portion of it now. He didn't start with his family's team, but yeah, it's crazy. Like 2015 to 2017, that magical Graham Rahal run, that is long in the past.
Even 2 years ago when the dude was racking up top 5s and top 10s with abandon. That is gone.
Yeah,
and to say nothing of Jack Harvey, who has been
again, alternate universe talking here. I mentioned it with Grosjean. There's an alternate universe where Christian Lundgaard's in an Alpine F1 seat and is probably killing it because the man was mad talented at ART and he fell for the curse of the ART second car, as many people who watch Formula 2 will tell you. The ART second car is cursed. Don't go anywhere near it. But I openly admit, if I'm being the full Lundgaard guy here, his oval game still needs work. And that's the drawback with him, is that he is still middle of the road on ovals.
I wouldn't even say middle of the road, but it's also a matter of environment. Like you put a driver like that in a Ganassi and you will see some improvement because I think they're a better resource to
you'll see
on a
what
project
they can really do.
Yeah. It's like with Scott McLaughlin when he first broke into IndyCar.
Well, look,
he has one
Graham
top 10
Rahal,
on oval since his career started.
Graham Rahal has won at Texas. He was getting lapped. Yeah. Business decision Pagano right behind him. I don't even want to talk about Simon. I don't even want to talk about Meyer Shank Racing right now. However, he was being lapped after 40 laps this year.
Brutal.
Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan they are just awful at ovals right now. We'll see what they can do around Indy because they've had pace there the last couple of years, but I'm not confident.
The other name I wanted to throw in the hat is David Malukas. I think David Malukas is a stud, and I think David Malukas actually might be a little bit more well-rounded as an IndyCar driver than Lundgaard is at the moment. I think him being a part of Dale Coyne is not helping. Dale Coyne is a good team, but they are,
low ceiling.
And as newly nicknamed Lil Dave has proven so far, I think he's a very, very fast driver. I think he's good enough for fast sixes at his best. And he's got the opposite problem to Lundgaard, where on ovals he can be incredible. Like Malukas has had a couple of days on ovals. He should have won at Gateway last year. That race is one lap longer. Malukas probably wins. It's like Malukas has got I'd say even higher ceiling than Lundgaard is at the moment. Maybe needs a better car to prove it. And there was talk in that Pruett piece that they might break off from Dale Coyne and have Malukas Senior start his own team.
Honestly,
the HM out of HMD.
That would be a really. Would we have the room on the grid?
Apparently, that we could have 29 cars next year. Cam.
That's my point. We might not have enough room at some of these paddocks to get all these guys into the sport.
Right. Because there's a possibility. There's a possibility that McLaren goes to 4. There's a possibility that Chip Ganassi goes to 5. And there is a possibility that the Malukas family might break off from Coin and start their own team.
I'm not privy to the same insider knowledge that others have, admittedly, and this is my one flaw as an aspiring IndyCar journalist. But there's a name that also is mentioned in this piece that is worth mentioning, and that's Callum Illot as well. He's going to be the belle of the ball. If he's available, I think that there's a chance that a lot of teams are going to make a play for him, and he'd be a perfect fit at Ganassi because
Callum Illot in a Ganassi car would be fucking terrifying.
Yeah. It's just a matter of whether or not he's free to leave the team or not. Because if I'm Junkos Hollinger Racing, a team that has big ambitions of wanting to be a power player in the IndyCar series, like we've had our we're the plucky underdogs moment, but now we want to go out and win stuff. You want to hold on to a driver like Callum Illot, don't you?
Oh, he can be the centerpiece of your ascension.
Yeah. And if you have to give up Callum Illot, you want to bring in somebody who is just as good, if not better.
Yeah.
I from that piece, they said that Illot might be the number 1 name on the list for next year. There's going to be a bidding war for this dude. And I think a lot of people are seeing that Junkos have gone leaps and bounds on a couple of years ago from where they were at as a team.
From where they were dead.
They were dead.
Oh, yeah.
They were a shambling corpse of a team after the 2019 500, and of course their IMSA program folded, and then we didn't hear anything from them for a couple of years while they regrouped. But yeah, I mean,
Callum Illot has 5 less points than Colton Herta does right now.
That I just got a nosebleed.
He's ahead of David Malou. He's ahead of 2/3 of the McLaren team.
He's ahead of Alex Rossi, ahead of Felix Rosenqvist, ahead of Graham Rahal, ahead of Rinus VK. There's some good names there. Like Callum was getting eyed up last year, potentially, for a big name seat. And I think apparently he's out of contract at the end of the year, and Illot is the number 1 name being circled on people's lists. They said that was Pruett speaking to team managers within IndyCar with the promise of being anonymous. Who are you looking at? Illot was the number 1 name with a bullet ahead of Marcus Ericsson, who is leading the championship right now. Because Ericsson's also a free agent at the end of the year.
Ooh, and boy, if anybody's able to pull away Marcus Ericsson, not just Marcus like we know he brings money with him, but we're past that point. Marcus Ericsson can drive.
Yeah. But at that same time, man, going from Ganassi, this is what I can't understand about Alex Palou. You're leaving Ganassi.
Before we wrap this up, can I throw in some screwballs from off the board?
Oh, please do.
Because there's a couple of names I've heard floating around. They're not mentioned in this racer piece, so they may still be in play. They may not be, but who knows? But I see another Ferrari Driver Academy graduate and another ridiculously fast driver from New Zealand that could be in the mix. The FDA graduate is Robert Schwartzman from wherever he's from, and the fast New Zealander is Formula E title contender Nick Cassidy. Schwartzman's already gone through an evaluation process with Ganassi because somebody's got to take over these seats. And Cassidy's a perfect fit. And again, another in the pipeline of super Formula to IndyCar success if it were to go down like that by way of Formula E. He'd be so good.
Yeah.
I would love to see me some Nick Cassidy in IndyCar. He's fast in no matter what you plug him into.
He's faster no matter what you put him in, and Cassidy has been the form man in Formula E so far this season. Like, he's been super hot in for that envision.
He's gonna have to change his name to Scott Cassidy.
Right. Change his name to Scott.
Scott Schwartzman.
Yeah, like Schwartzman, I'm pretty sure he was one of the quickest dudes in that Formula E rookie test they just had in Tempelhof as well. So, again,
I feel like he would be someone who would be able to climb over that fence, dream the impossible dream, and actually wear out the Hancooks in Formula E.
That man, if we were racing drivers on an ultimate team basis, he'd have 0 next to tire wear, but maybe a 91 next to the pace stats. Schwartzman is fast as hell, but we all know he was a tire butcher when he was in Formula 2.
But he does have IndyCar testing experience. It's really just a matter of, is he going to be loyal to Ferrari in case a hypercar seat opens up for him in the future, or does he want to get back into single seaters? Who knows?
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot there, but some of those names that are out there are fascinating, and amazingly, IndyCar actually has the room to facilitate it potentially.
It's crazy. Look, we talked a lot about, and I pushed back on some of the criticism that the series gets, because like, this is not one of the things you can be critical about. They've got dudes. They've got people who want to race in the series,
which is great. That's half the battle. And, we have to wait and see if the sport can find a way to get him in. IndyCar is back in a week and a half's time for the GMR Grand Prix at the Indianapolis Road Course. That's going to be a fascinating race. There's so many dudes that are absolutely killer on the road course. Alex Rossi, Christian Lundgaard, Will Power, Joseph Newgarden, Pato Award, all really, really strong around the road course in recent times. Like Grosjean as well, and that was his first real breakout results in IndyCar. Was it the Indy road course? So again, given the way the title's panning out in the moment, it's going to be a fascinating round. Can't wait to see how that goes down on that one as we start the month of May. We all know where that's going. We're going to see how this IndyCar season really shakes down very, very soon. We'll be back next time around episode-wise. After the triple header will be Formula One in Miami. Again, who knows? Maybe second time around will be better out for them.
Gosh, that was such an amazing trip. I'm just glad I'm back, which is, well, by the time you'll be hearing this, I will be back.
Who won?
Well, you'll just have to tune into the podcast next week, because we don't want to just give it all away out of order. Now, that would be ridiculous. I mean, you just listen to the Formula One podcast from Azerbaijan.
as if anyone is going to want to hear more about that race weekend.
No, absolutely not. But yeah, gosh, that'll do it for this one. Please, you can find us one more time. Well, not one more time, because we got straight into it at the top of the show this time round. Real quick, motorsport101.com is our website. All our social media is on there. Again, our personal handles at Dre_WTF1, at CBuckley917, at RJ O'Connell. Do check us out there. Check us out on Patreon as well, and throw us a few quid. If you really like us, you can back us on there for early access to episodes and support us come our Discord server. All that good stuff is over there. I am exhausted because I've done nearly 3 hours of recordings, and this is the fourth podcast I've sat through today. I am on emergency battery here, but a pleasure as always to sit down with these fine folks and talk some motorsport for the last 3 hours. It's been a shift, but we got there. Hope you guys enjoyed it just as much as we did. Until next time, I've been Dre Harrison. They've been Cam Buckley and RJ O'Connell. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week. Sayonara.
Later, y'all.
I can't wait to watch. I can't wait to get up on my birthday and watch some Indy 500.
Day of classics, baby.